microphone? Okay, well, good afternoon. My name is Hugo Morales, and I'm the chair of the search. I want to welcome all of you, all search committee members and the guests, to the official launch of the Stanislaus State Presidential Search. Discussion, we will be doing a brief overview of the timeline and selection process, but we want to focus our time on hearing from you. First, I'd like to have the members of the committee introduce themselves. Could we start from my right?
Hi, I'm Nancy Burrows. I'm a professor in the Department of Communication Studies and Applied Leadership.
Hello, I'm Silas Abrego, a CSU trustee.
Adrienne Harrell, the chair of the Alumni Council.
Mildred Garcia, President, California State University, Fullerton.
Marty Grinbaum, President's Advisory Board.
Susanna Espinosa, Vice President for Enrollment and Student Affairs.
Board Chair of the Yosemite Community College District and also on the President's Advisory Council.
Dawn McCulley, Administrative Support Coordinator, Physics and Geology.
I'm Tim White, Chancellor of the University.
Hugo Morales, trustee from Fresno.
Nicole Larson, ASI President.
I'm Mark Thompson, Speaker of the Faculty.
Connie Stone, Professor in Chemistry.
Stephen Stepanek, Professor of Computer Science at California State University Northridge and also Faculty Trustee.
Good afternoon, Kurt Wilson. I'm the City Manager of Stockton, California.
And I'm Maggie White, Student Trustee and Proud Warrior here at Stanislaus State.
Lars Walton, Chief of Staff of Chancellor White. I serve as staff to the committee.
I'm David Belsheim with the search firm Isaacson Miller.
Hi, Katie Mitchell with the search firm.
And I'm Courtney Wilk, also with the search firm.
So between now and the end, in about next 3 months, Chancellor White and Isaacson and Miller team will be working together to recruit and seek nominations and applications for seeking highly qualified individuals to apply for this important position. The full committee will review resumes and identify candidates to interview in early May, with final candidates meeting with the Board of Trustees in the May board meeting. Chancellor White, could you talk a little bit about confidentiality?
Yeah. Thank you, Trustee Morales, and let me also just thank the members of the community that are here today, and you'll hear it again in a few minutes, but if we're going to be looking for your comments today, and if you remember something afterwards and you forgot to say it, you can send it to us electronically, or those who can't make it today or joining us virtually, they too can send in their questions or comments or perspectives, and all of that information gets assembled by our good folks at Isaacson Miller and gets in front of every member of this committee. I do want to talk a bit about the confidentiality of the process and provide a perspective as to why the trustees have adopted the policy that is in place on the process that leads to the selection of the next great president for Stan State. Our goal, and I think everybody would agree with this, is to find a truly outstanding president to succeed President Shealy. And so we'll be looking for people with the right set based on our conversation today of the skills and the experiences and values and views and energy and ambition to help advance this wonderful campus forward in the years ahead. The reality of the world that we conduct these searches in is one that if we want to have a very outstanding outcome, we have to build an outstanding pool of finalists to bring in front of the trustees for the ultimate selection. And in order to get a strong group of people, a pool of people for consideration, the world in which we live is that the process has to be one that's 100% confidential. And so when we talk to people that we're trying to recruit into the pool, that often is the very first question. So you may want to stop and think, so important to somebody. So we're not looking for somebody who is gliding along, doing so-so work, and who's interested in coming to this campus. We're looking for somebody who may be a sitting president at another university in the United States or internationally. We may be looking for somebody who's been a provost of a big, complicated place, or someone who perhaps is a dean of a very large, complicated campus or school within a campus and has done amazing things with fundraising and academic freedom and student success and all of the variables. Those people that are at the top of their game will not allow themselves to be candidates if their candidacy were to be disclosed. And the reason that's so is because, just think of this, if I'm a sitting president at University X, but I'm interested in coming here, and there's 30 or 40 or 50 other people who are also interested in coming here, I have a pretty low probability of getting the job. But if my current place, where I have great relationships with donors and with the faculty senate leadership and with the student leadership and the community members, know that I say, I really like where I am, but I want to go take a look at this wonderful place in Turlock. And if I don't get that job and I come back home and say, just kidding, I actually really do love it here where I am, that relationship has been changed forever for that campus. Not only for the person, but for the campus's success going forward. And in the world of higher education, you can see examples of this over and over and over again. And so, while there are trade-offs in the way we go about doing this, it really is the only way today to get the strongest candidate for this campus. So then people could ask the question, well, that seems too secretive, or it's closed. And I would actually ask you to think about different words to describe the process, not as secret, but as confidential. And not as closed, but rather as open. And it's open because you've elected your representatives on this committee, student, faculty, senate, staff, to represent the stakeholders for the next president. And through that individual, your voice is heard. So if you have comments that you don't share today, that you want to make sure come into the conversation, then make sure you get a hold of Dawn with her. So when next time we gather, she brings those points of view with her. But everything that gets said today and everything that comes in electronically between now and when we meet to review resumes comes in front of all of us to know what you're interested in finding. Because our job is to find a president that's going to be successful here for this campus, for the students and the faculty and the staff of this wonderful university campus, and for the community. And we need your voices to help shape those attributes. And we also need your voices to help say, I think so-and-so at University X over in New Zealand is exactly the skill set we need. Why don't you guys go reach out and see if we can get her interest in coming here? Right, so we're going to be asking you to help us create the pool as well. Let me turn it to David Belshot.
Great. Well, thank you. As the Chancellor said, in addition to the comments you share with us today, you should also go to the csustand.edu website /presidential-search, and there you will find updates as well as mechanisms for you to get comments back, both in terms of thoughts about what it is you would like your next president to accomplish, characteristics and attributes, but also the names and suggestions of folks. All of that information will be kept confidential. They'll be aggregated. It'll be shared with the committee. But we would love to get your commentary back throughout the search process, starting today and moving forward. And we will monitor that website, make sure that we get that information, and we would encourage all of you to participate in that process as well as comments that we'll collect here today. We also have talked to the committee about this. You will actually, at the end of the search process, most likely call your friend on a particular campus to check out the person to see if they're a good person. And what we'd like for you to do is, of course, you'll be doing that at the end of the process, but we would encourage you to call your friends on other campuses now and ask them, who is that individual that should be considered as to get that name in as a nomination, or have your friend put that name in as a nomination. The more that you are out there spreading the good word and also getting your friends to give you good advice, that will make the process. And so we are hoping that the faculty, staff, students, community members will engage with us in spreading the word that we're looking for the very best person and to get those ideas and suggestions back to us in the course of the search process. So thank you in advance for that. Chancellor White.
Yeah, thank you, David.
So the design of this forum is to listen. And there are microphones on either side, and so we encourage everyone with thoughts to line up and to get a chance to present your point of view. What we're listening to is, what does the next president need to deliver for Stanislaus State's near-term and long-term future? What makes this institution special? What must be preserved as values of this institution? What must be changed in your view? And some of you may have come just to listen, and as you hear ideas being brought forward by your colleagues, it may spur a different point of view, and we encourage you then to get up and say what you're thinking about as well. Or you may want to say, you know, I agree with Professor Cronky in physics on that particular point of fundraising for the academic departments. So you don't have to be repetitive, but we will capture all of this. You know, we record this, so it's live webcast as you heard now, but it also gets archived at the search website. And any and every candidate of seriousness will watch this video. And so we want to make sure that this video then is an honest reflection of what the campus is seeking by way of skills and attributes and experiences of the next president, and the sort of programs and hopes and aspirations for the continued development of this campus here. And so in many respects, you're meeting today your new president. You don't know who she is or who he is yet, but they will see this video. And so you're making your first impression to your new president. So as you choose your words carefully, to think about that. And also, I think, to recognize that a recruitment process is really a twofold thing for all of us to share in. One is we're trying to evaluate candidates, but we're also trying to sell, if you will, the value and the beauty, energy, and the vision for this campus. That we are trying to recruit good people to say, you know, I didn't realize that about Stanislaus State University, and now that I understand that, you know, I want to be part of that success story. So our job in this open session and our job as a committee is to find those semi-finalists and ultimately finalists to bring in front of the entire Board of Trustees that reflect your interests, because he or she will become your president. Hugo?
Yes, well, thank you, Chancellor. So we will spend the next hour or so hearing from anyone on the audience who would like to speak and comment. Please line up as you are doing already here to these two microphones. We'd like to hear from as many of you as possible. So please keep your comments short and to the point. The search firm will be taking notes and will provide the committee a summary of these notes. So may I start with my right? And thank you for all of you for being here. So please proceed.
Thank you.
I will go from right and then to left. So please proceed.
Okay, thanks. My name's John Sorrell. I'm a faculty member here in the computer science department. I'm also the current president of the Stanislaus chapter of the California Faculty Association. Since you've all introduced yourselves in various ways, I'll also mention that I was the speaker of the Faculty Senate a few years back. I've served on the statewide academic senate of the CSU, and so I know a little bit about some of you and some of the things you do. I welcome this opportunity to make a good impression on our next president, and I lament the fact that he or she doesn't make a good first impression on me. I have a couple of things I want to say about what I would like to see in the next president of Stanislaus State. First of all, there's a large number of faculty on campus who are severely underpaid and whose salaries are significantly compressed or inverted. The contract between the faculty and the management of the university enables the president to address such salary equity problems. I would like a president who would be willing to do that authentically and comprehensively. That's one. Second, the contract also provides for meetings between the president and a representative of the California Faculty Association to discuss topics of interest to the university community. While the contract allows the president to designate someone else to attend those meetings in his place, I would like it very much if we had the kind of president who would be willing to talk personally with CFA representatives once a month. That's it.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I'm Stuart Sims. I'm a professor here in the music department. Proud to host you in our lovely recital hall here. I'm also chair of the Faculty Affairs Committee and speaker-elect of the faculty. One of the primary concerns in my mind with this sort of search, especially looking for a lead executive of our campus, is that early on in the process, we communicate that maybe our campus is a little different than other campuses in the CSU. Not only are we located in a rural region, but the student body that we serve is over 70% first-generation college students. And across the campus, we take our mission to serve this region very seriously. And it's a little bit different than a lot of the campuses in the CSU, maybe particularly those located in more populated or metropolitan areas. And I would encourage you, as you begin to vet candidates, to keep that concern primary in your mind, that it's an individual who has experience and who knows and who is student-focused, maybe even before institutional focus, someone who's not maybe focused on raising the profile of the university per se, but serving our mission in this region first and as a fundamentally important part of what we do. So I guess I don't have a question. That's just my general comment. I want you to keep that forefront in your mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you go to my right?
Hi, I appreciate your coming out here. My name is Brett Carroll. I'm a professor of history here. I'm also an immediate past speaker of the faculty. I've got a couple points I want to make, and I'm going to get my stopwatch back to make sure I don't go on too long. I want to keep it to 3 minutes or under. So, 4 basic points. One, so far I've heard no evidence, and therefore I'm not convinced that confidentiality is absolutely essential to ensuring an outstanding pool of candidates. We've had several presidents here in the past. With one recent exception I can think of, I haven't really minded them. And they all came with the chance to make their first impressions. So again, I see no evidence and therefore no reason to believe that confidentiality is essential. Secondly, if you're familiar with the recent history of this campus, you're aware that trust between administration and the faculty has been a particularly problematic issue, and a president who does not come and see us firsthand before coming might have a problem establishing that kind of trust. Certainly more so than with a candidate who comes here, makes himself present, gives all of us a chance to meet him or her in person. Third, when we hire professors or vice presidents, they are thoroughly vetted. They are here for quite a length of time. They speak with numerous constituencies, and yet all those people have kind of a smaller scope of influence and action than the person you're trying to bring in. And I can't see why a person with so much more influence and pow on the campus should somehow be exempt from the same here. Follow. A fourth and last point, and I'm going to have to go to my office hours. So clear that my presence here, however, and I speak for myself here, not for others in the room, should not be taken to validate a legitimate process that's underway right now. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Could we go to the left?
Hi, my name is Piero. I'm the chairman board of Turlock Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to say a few words in this. I'd like to thank Dr. Shealy for his remarkable support and partnership toward connecting the university to the community and specifically for working with the Chamber and our business community. Thank the university for being located in Turlock. I encourage each of you to view our Welcome to Turlock video, specifically Education and CSU Stanislaus Chamber of Commerce website, for this was created in partnership with the university and other major stakeholders, highlighting the measured benefit for your presence is to our Central Valley. Thanks the search committee for taking the time to hear from the community essentials, quantities, and experience that are important to our business community would be someone who can continue connecting university knowledge with community knowledge is in mutually beneficial ways while emphasizing university-community partnership that are collaborative, empowering, systematic, and transformative. We have to continue our great relationship with the university, and that high on the list of qualities and experience essential in the next president is a community leader and a partner with these same ideas. Thank you again for your consideration. We look forward to welcoming our next university president, and please let the Turlock Chamber of Commerce know if there is anything we can do to help. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your commitment. To my right.
Hi there. My name is Ann Strom, and I'm faculty in the Department of Sociology, Gerontology, and Gender Studies. I'm also the A statewide academic senator for CSU Stanislaus. I'm the treasurer for our local CFA chapter, and I'm on several college level and university level committees. And I'm focused, the committees that I'm most interested in are committees that work to improve student access and success. So here's what I believe we need in our next president. We need someone with actual academic experience. We're looking for someone who has gone through the RPT, or for those that don't know, retention, tenure, and promotion process, and moved through the ranks, at least to full professor. We have seen the universities recently, bunnies, Glocks, and drowning, that a university president recently said about students, and we've seen those problems, and I don't think that it's appropriate to have a college, a university, an institution of higher education run by someone who has limited higher education experience. So please, let's not select that. We need someone who values not just any teaching, but a person who values meaningful liberal arts education for working class students, first generation students, and students of color. We need a president that doesn't see students as a mere extraction zone. We need someone who's not obsessed with so-called accountability schemes and rankings based on students' SAT scores, what those scores are when they enter CSU. We did have that at one time here. We need someone who is interested in working with all people on campus. This includes the leadership of our staff and faculty unions. We need someone who understands the need of local philanthropy, but who does not allow donors to dictate any aspect of this institution. And finally, we need a president who doesn't believe in unilateral governance and decision-making, and instead has a very clear, long, and obvious history of collaborative work on a college campus. Thank you.
Thank you. To my left.
My name is Elaine Peterson. I'm a faculty member in the Economics Department and current chair of the Faculty Budget Advisory Committee. I want to thank you all for working on this very important task and hope that you will succeed in getting us an excellent president. CSU Stanislaus is an important source of opportunity for economic mobility in this area. I would like our university president to respect our diverse students, many of whom come from disadvantaged backgrounds and have complex demands on them, such as supporting their families. I would like our university president to continually think about how we can best meet the needs of the students we serve. I would like our university president to work with faculty and staff in a consultative and collaborative way. I would like our university president to work with faculty governance and use our established procedures. I would like our university president to highly value teaching and learning. And I would like the presidential candidates to meet with faculty and openly discuss their backgrounds and leadership approach. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dave Kolnick, and I'm a professor in the Department of Political Science and Public Administration, where I am currently the director of the MPA program. I also am on the executive board for the California Faculty Association, the local chapter, as well as on the university budget advisory committee and the college budget and planning committee. I've held other governance posts in the past as well. First of all, thank you for coming. I'll echo my colleague's voice. It's nice to see you all out, and I will also echo much of what has already been said here. First of all, while I can appreciate some need for confidentiality, particularly at the early stages, nothing has been said that really that particularly during the final certification that we should not have a more open and consultative process where somebody comes to the campus where we can meet that person and that person can meet us. It's critical that we find someone who fits our dynamic and our unique population. This includes both faculty and students and staff, actually, all three. To do that, to get that goodness of fit, a full vetting would be appropriate. We do that for assistant professors at a much larger scale. We also do that for federal offices, such as Secretary of State. There ought to be a way to bring the finalists to campus. Lastly, and along that similar vein, we need a president who is engaged and actively consultative and collaborative with all three of the main constituencies, students, staff, and faculty, willing to meet with them, interact with them, and solve, address our joint problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Patrick Johnston. I chair the Stockton Site Authority. Thank you very much for this forum and for the attention and time that all of you, many from disparate parts of California, have devoted to coming here, listening to this group, and all the other things that you will do in this important search. The Stockton Site Authority is a joint powers agreement between the City of Stockton and the CSU trustees. To go back a bit, Stanislaus State was authorized 1957 by the legislature to create an important educational institution for the public access between Fresno and Sacramento. And so Turlock was chosen. And that primary service area has always included surrounding counties in the Central Valley and in the Sierra Mountains. During the 20 years I spent in the legislature, I represented many of those counties, at times Stanislaus and always San Joaquin and Tuolumne and Calaveras and other counties. And so the importance of this institution to the people of this part of the state has always been strong. And that commitment by CSU trustees, as well as by the faculty and the administration here in Turlock, has always been strong, and that's good. So in 1965, this campus came into being after some time at the Stanislaus Fairgrounds offering classes. And then just 9 years later, in 1974, Stanislaus State started offering classes at the State Building in downtown Stockton, where I worked at the time. And those classes helped working adults and students who lived at home, often without great resources, to do part of their education, probably not all of it, in Stockton as part of Stanislaus State. And many did and continue to go to classes in Turlock and take some classes in Stockton. And then Stanislaus State outgrew those rooms at the State Building on Channel Street and moved to Delta Community College in Stockton, a good partnership for lower division and upper division. And then in the mid-90s, the state of California decided to close the Stockton Developmental Center, originally the Stockton Insane Asylum going back to 1852. And so here in the middle of Stockton, 102 acres, a campus with beautiful old oak trees, was suitable and available. And so Stanislaus State and CSU embraced that, and with the city of Stockton, set up a joint powers authority, and the state of California formally transferred that responsibility to this site authority. So that 7-member board includes 3 members of the Stockton City Council, including the mayor, and 3 members of the CSU Board of Trustees, and it has come to be the president of Stanislaus State as one of those. And so we meet to foster that 100 acres in the city of Stockton, that part of which offers classes. So I come to this point. You are doing your search. Your main job undoubtedly will be finding the right person for the 9,000 students and the many fine faculty and staff and buildings and programs that anchor this campus of Stanislaus State. But CSU and Stanislaus have always viewed that wider area with the large population in Stockton and San Joaquin County as in need of additional services. And so with this branch campus of the Stockton Center, it is possible to continue that interaction and that growth. From the time that was really established around 2000 with Dr. Marveline Hughes as the president of Stanislaus State, a great supporter of not only that branch campus being established, but really working with the community people in so many ways, until Dr. Joseph Shealy became president. They have anchored this kind of support that we have seen intermittently, but often consistently from the trustees. And so the Chancellor, Chancellor White, came to Stockton as well and toured that campus and also met with many people in the community. So I would ask, as you go about your search and as people apply for this, the primary focus, of course, is here. But an important part of the responsibility is all of the people in rural areas or in rather low-income areas in this surrounding counties, including Stockton and San Joaquin County, who can benefit from a public education. And so the next president of Stanislaus State hopefully would be in the tradition of our most recent current president and the first president who established that campus, because then we will have involvement. And there are tensions, to be sure, as limited budgets have to be shared. And we have seen expectations of hundreds of students, even thousands, going to the Stockton campus fall off to below 100 of full-time equivalent students. And now we've seen it come up. And while the percentage increase with Provost Strong and Dr. Shealy have been strong to make sure that we grow again, we have to continue that. And so as part of the mission and responsibility of the next president, I would ask that you incorporate the future of the Stockton Branch campus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, welcome to our campus. My name is Samuel Regalado. I'm a professor of history and also a member of the Academic Senate. I'll be a little bit more blunt than the prior speaker here. If I had my druthers, I would just I would abolish any sort of decision that comes from the Board of Trustees, because I think that the record of the Board of Trustees has been rather dismal in the past several years. Some may recall that at the time that this campus, that the faculty had issued a no confidence vote on the president that was here, that there were several other campuses also that were going through the same thing. About a third of all of the other Cal State universities also had voted no confidence on their presidents as well. And to me, that spoke to the judgment of the Board of Trustees, or the lack of judgment to the Board of Trustees. I could see if there might be one situation, but there were several of them at that time. It was also at that time that they had concocted this process that the Chancellor refers to as confidential. I refer to as secretive. There was no faculty representative on the Board of Trustees at the time that this plan was created, the one that we are facing right now. And I think it's all the more ironic in that here we are still going through this process, through the secretive plan, that the selection of a United States Supreme Court justice is actually more transparent than the selection of a president of a university, a taxpayer-funded president, I might add. I think that demands transparency on that merit alone. The Chancellor has made the argument that confidentiality is all that important, because for those who are not selected as president here, they'll return to their campus and they'll face some sensitive issues, because donors may be inclined not to withhold their funds and all that. But did the Chancellor also consider that it might actually reinforce that person back in their campus? If those candidates are as good as the Chancellor is making the claim that they are, it seems to me that the people at their home campuses would be relieved that they would return there. There might be actually more donors because they want to keep this guy here, or he or she. That it could work just the other way around, if they're as good as you're claiming that they are. If they are not, I don't know why we want them over here. But we won't know that, because we have to trust the word of the Board of Trustees, and we've seen what their record is at this particular point in time. So I think that the process, as one of my colleagues said, is unconscionable. I think it was generous in that statement. And to any prospective candidate that's listening to this right now at a later date, I would say that if that candidate accepts this process, is willing to accept this process, I don't know that we want you here. We have an academic senate. I will warn you now that it's very ambitious when it comes down to transparency. And the reason that our academic senate is the way that it is because we know the consequences when leaders are not transparent. Why would we want more of that on our campus? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next,
hello and welcome. My name is Larry Giventer. I'm Professor Emeritus from the Department of Political Science and Public Administration. That means I'm retired. Started here in 1975. I've been a professor here for 40 years. Let me first review for many who know me, but for those who don't, I'm the author of 2 textbooks. I have served on several CSU system committees, many CSU Stanislaus committees. I've taught in Stockton for most of that time. I founded the Master of Public Administration program, which is nationally accredited, and directed it for more than 20 years. I've served as Speaker of the Faculty and a department chair. So I've been around the block a few times and have served as a close advisor to several of our university presidents. I'm going to speak for a moment here, just on one point, to our unknown future university president on what I think is the key issue and problem with respect to Cal State Stanislaus, and that is too small. 9,000 students is not enough. We've heard comments regarding the opportunities in Stockton. You know that we are a Latino-serving institution. You've heard comments that most of our students are first-generation students. At 9,000 FTE, we're too small. We've been held down by the budget restrictions, both direct and indirect, from the trustees and from the CSU system. We should be at over 12,000 students today. And I've pointed this out several times to prior presidents and to system representatives. We ought to be setting a goal within the near term to grow this institution to double the size in FTE that it is now. That is what's needed for this institution, and that's what it is needed to serve the San Joaquin Valley. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, hi there everybody. My name is Raina Shalise, and I am a student here at CSU Stanislaus. I am also a first-generation student and also the chair for the Students for Quality Education Club on our campus. And I had a little chat with Chancellor White earlier in the quad about my concerns with the Board of Trustees' priorities. And this is a very real concern because the people who are making my future possible are not getting their needs met, and that's a real problem. So what I'm looking for in the future university president is a clear channel to the administration of student concerns. Right now, there's a real concern with the Fight for Five, and I stand with my faculty because they literally make all of my future opportunities a possibility. And without them, I wouldn't have that. And then on top of that, we have the concern with the sustainability model, which is, for all of you who don't know, the Board of Trustees is considering tying the rate of our tuition increases to inflation. And on top of that, considering cutting financial aid. And that's the only reason I'm here, because otherwise my family can't afford to pay for me to go to college. The rising price of higher education is unrealistic. So honestly, what I need is someone who's going to listen to student concerns and then deliver them to the Board of Trustees. Because I don't know if you've gotten my emails, Chancellor White, and my phone calls, but I've been trying to get a hold of you to let you know what my concerns are. And so I'm really glad I ran into you in the quad, because otherwise that wouldn't have been a possibility. So I need a university president who's willing to take those concerns straight to the Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Becky Hockler-Ariano. I had the opportunity to go here, and I'm alumni of, I think, 1996 or something like that. I don't even remember. I come with one question. What is the process of vetting? Does it just come from the university system, or does it go out as, a broad spectrum of how you get candidates to apply? Do they have to be within the university system, or can they come from, an outside tech company, or what is that process?
Well, you could suggest somebody. I mean, the field is really wide open.
It's very wide open. Okay. On another subject, I have 3 young boys. I've lived in this community my whole entire life. As I said, I'm an alumni here. And what I'm seeing are some missed opportunities, and I had the opportunity to work with Marveline Hughes, who was wonderful. I ended up working for Congress for 12 years, Congressman Radonovich, and I had some real opportunities to go outside of the area and see what our town is either, and I don't want to say lacking, what we haven't achieved yet as far as education in this area. I thought I had a great educational experience here. I have 3 young boys, 10, 5, and 3. I want them to have the opportunity to go here and get the same education they would if they went to Fresno State or if they went to Sacramento State. And I think we only had 8,000 students back then, so we haven't really increased that much. We need to know why. You can't fit a big vision in a little tiny box. So what I would like to see from the president, and our last president was out in the community a little bit more. I had the opportunity, one of my family members is running for the assembly. I had the opportunity to go sit with her on a panel at Modesto Junior College, and 90% of those kids are going from high school to work. So we're missing a huge opportunity with those kids coming to work and going to school. And why isn't that opportunity, why aren't they learning about this opportunity earlier than, in the high school or even after high school? And one of the gentlemen that was there said, well, I didn't even know you could go to work and go to school. I thought you just had to do one thing or the other. So there's a real lack of communication, even just within this community and with this region. There's a lot of people that we could pull from. My average age class, and the age of the classes that I had when I was here, was about 35 to 40. So there wasn't a lot of young people that we're pulling from. I think the next president needs to be very proactive in the community, a bigger vision. I can respect the faculty and their monetary concerns. I think that's very, very important. But I think we're missing a whole opportunity with just the region that we have here. Bringing someone in from, let's say, back east, they really need to understand what the dynamic of this region is about. And a lot of people, I think out of my graduating class, there was maybe 100 kids that went to college at Turlock High in 1991. There wasn't that many. So what I would like to see from the next president, and this president I thought did very well, is more community outreach. I met with Ms. Polk a couple weeks ago. They're starting to get the alumni program back going. I think there's a lot of missed opportunities, and I think I would like to see somebody that could bring those opportunities back to campus and build on them to create a better vision for this future. We want our kids the opportunity to stay here and not go to Cal Poly or not go to Fresno State because they have better ag programs than we do. We should have a great ag program here, and it is building. It is getting great, but we're not there yet. So for my future children, 10, 7, and 3, I'd like to have them the opportunity to come here and say, when they hand them that diploma on a job interview, oh, you went to Stanislaus State? That's where I want to see it get to. So thank you.
Thank you for your thoughts. Next.
Hello, my name is Chris Nagel. I am a temporary faculty member here. I've been temporary, this is my 18th year. I have a couple things I want to mention. One is about temporary faculty, so it's more sort of for us as temporary faculty. Temporary faculty teach about half of the classes at this university, and more than half of the classes CSU-wide. I want a president who acknowledges the contributions of temporary faculty, acknowledges that temporary faculty are not temporary, that they do the work that full-time tenure-track faculty do, and they do it in conditions that are less helpful to them doing their work well. And they do more work in many ways than the tenure-track faculty who are already overworked. I want a president who will not only acknowledge that, not only respect the non-tenure-track faculty, but support them and support efforts to shift the way faculty are hired to more tenure-track status, including finding ways to bridge between so-called temporary faculty who are qualified into tenure-track faculty. There are many models for doing this. No one would have to reinvent the wheel. No one would have to be all that creative. They would just have to be willing to do it. I also have a concern more as a citizen of the university, which is that I want a president who can assure that all of our students have constant access to full-time, permanently hired psychological counseling faculty. We have a dire need on this campus, as we are currently down to 1 full-time psychological counselor and some emergency hires. And the president and the administration's proposed solutions to this have been inadequate. We need, and our students deserve, a situation that promotes a safe and helpful learning environment for them, and that includes access to those services on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Gene Bigler. I graduated from University of the Pacific in the mid-1960s and left this area, returned once as a faculty member there, and then after 40 years, in 2005, I returned to Pacific as a university professor of international relations. And I'm here because I'm one of an increasing number of citizens in Stockton and the northern part of San Joaquin Valley that feel that our community has not been well served. And we feel that we haven't been well served because of a number of problems that relate to how we're lagging in higher education. And we're lagging specifically in some areas that this university does very well and has every reason to be proud of. Its record in community service is outstanding. The record as a Hispanic serving institution is very important and needs to be recognized throughout the state and the United States. The percentage of students who participate in service learning programs is extremely important and is another mark of distinction and quality in education. As a retired Foreign Service officer, I'm also highly cognizant of the importance of service learning experiences in developing outstanding professionals in every field of endeavor. But unfortunately, in Stockton, we have little of the benefit or access to these outstanding attributes of this institution. And the result is that an increasing number of us feel that the solution is for us to have our own CSU in Stockton. And so at a moment in which you're considering the selection of a new president for this university, which covers and is responsible for serving our community, there may be another alternative, or at least something that will help in the interim, and we certainly need the help in Stockton, and we need it greatly, and not just Stockton, throughout the rest of the northern part of our area. Because one of the things that's happening to us is that the income gap between our region in California and the rest of California is growing at an alarming pace. And one of the reasons this income gap is growing at such an alarming pace is that we lack the coordination of government, academic, and private sector resources that characterize the very rapid and strong growth of the Bay Area and the Sacramento area and parts of Southern California. We need this badly in the Valley. This institution and its future president should be a person that's especially attuned to this challenge in our community. The income gap between our area and the rest of California was only 20% before 2005, but it's forecast in the latest statewide figures to grow to more than 50% by 2035. And so that's just an indication of how urgent it is for us to develop the resources that we need in this community. We're especially concerned also with linking our existing institutions in our community with this university community. We think there ought to be, we've seen the success of articulation programs for raising the percentage of university graduates in communities all over the United States. The Kellogg supported program found its greatest success in those kinds of programs that create pathways from elementary school through university graduation. We've seen that in the state of California, and we've seen it elsewhere across the country, but we haven't seen it here, so we're actually falling further behind other areas of our society. These are some of the ways in which we can work together, but it would require a greater presence. If there are only a handful of full-time employees in Stockton, there's no way that this institution can help meet the needs of a population base more than twice the size of the one that it's serving in immediately. So these are some of the concerns that we have, and we're really pleased by your coming to our community and listening to these needs, and we hope you will continue the outreach, and we're especially pleased to see our outstanding city manager as part of this panel. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. Thank you for your remarks. To my right.
Good afternoon. Pardon me. My name is Clarissa Lawn Nichols, and I'm the Director of Student Leadership and Development. And I'd just like to share very briefly what this campus does that's quite extraordinary and what a future president that I think would want to come here for. And that is really about student engagement. Really, our university will find to be somebody who is quite good at their scholarship, who is quite excellent at becoming competitive in the job market or in their career. And it's really the discipline, the development, and the discovery that our faculty, our staff, and our administrators give that's beyond just the minimum. And I mean this with all sincerity in the sense that the student engagement and what I hope this next president not only is who is really rich in. And so for the student experience, both the student engagement piece, and that's inclusive of the academic student engagement, that holistic piece, the development of the student, is really front and center, and that our focus and our commitment, because I know it's unwavering from everybody who, I wish there was a list of names, because as I was thinking standing here, it could roll right out down to the stage. But really, there's no one that I couldn't think of better that has really made a powerful difference in the lives of our students, and that's the commitment to the student experience. And that's what I hope the next president not only continues, that President Shealy and our university's leadership has been a champion of, but that the next person will find so very attractive, and they're looking forward to hopefully coming to CSU Stanislaus. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker on the left.
Hello, I'm Sandra Loza. I'm the ASI Associated Students Vice President, and I'm also a fourth-year student here at Stanislaus. Thank you, Clarissa. That was very well stated, as I believe that that's something that's very important for our students here as well. Another thing that I look for the next president is definitely placing value in students as a key stakeholder on our campus, someone who's very approachable, willing to communicate and collaborate with student groups and students, even just, who are struggling in their classes or whatever problems they may have, just to be approachable and open to hearing these and having these discussions and just collaborating with us is very important to me. Also, it's very important to me to continue with our current President Shealy. What he has done is he's really made it very much possible for our relationship with Turlock to grow. And I think we're very much at a point where our community, our Turlock community and our campus is very much ready for that growth, not just in population, but it's very important for Turlock to see us as an important member of this community. And I would love to see someone who can come and establish and maintain these relationships and make them better so that we're able to be embraced by our Turlock community, which is something that historically has not really happened. When Stanislaus came, we were not very wanted in our community, and that's changed over the last few years. So to see that continue to change and progress in a positive way, that would be amazing, and that's really what I'm hoping for in a president. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Howell. I'm a leader and I moved, actually I'm a recent resident of Turlock and of the state of California. This is an amazing process. And I moved here to be a leader of the local senior community here in Turlock. And at a Chamber of Commerce meeting, I met Dr. Shealy, and subsequently I've got to know Provost Strong. And I was just very impressed with their willingness to come, to reach out, to be on our campus, to re-engage with our residents, many of them who are the foundation of our community. And subsequently, we've been able to have many staff and faculty members on our campus, as well as students who are fulfilling some of their volunteer hours and meeting some of their academic challenges. It just begun to become a very, very good partnership. And I would just like to echo some of what has been said here earlier, that this partnership between the school and our community is so very important to the life-giving process of growth that takes place in Turlock and the surrounding areas. And a leader who sees and values these relationships in the community and with those people who have lived many years in the community, and really it is their legacy that I stand on. So as you seek this person in this new leadership role, I would just encourage you to look for somebody who values that legacy, that values the relationship with the community, and desires to make that better in the years to come.
Thank you very much for your thoughts. Next.
My name is Hannah Renning, and I have had contact since 1970 with the university. First of all, my husband was a professor here for almost 30 years, and so I was a faculty wife. Later, I joined the support staff working in the library. I was a student to take some courses, so I am a proud alumna of CSU Stanislaus. Also, I've been involved with AAUW and the League of Women Voters for many years, so I've been an observer of what. I'd like to echo the positive things which people have said today about the last administration here, which was exemplary in making contact with the community, making contact with alumni, and trying to make alumni proud of having been students here. I've also been very much in support of the faculty speakers today and their quest for good pay and for good terms of employment, especially for the temporary faculty. What I would like to see in a new president would be somebody who would be able to function in many different modes, addressing the needs of the faculty, the support staff, the students, of course, first of all, the community, et cetera, and not to be blindfolded with one mission that he or she has that would be what the president would want to impose on this campus community rather than listening to the voices of the people who are here. So I encourage the search committee to look for candidates who will listen to other people. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I go?
Yes, good afternoon. Presidential Search Committee, Mr. Hugo Morales, thank you for making this event possible and to outreach to the community. I'm a community member. I'm coming from Fresno, working with, yes, my name is Leoncio Vasquez, thank you, Executive Director of the Binational Center for the Development of the Indigenous Communities. And as the name mentions, I work with indigenous people, recent immigrants to this country. It will be great to have this university take into account we face as new immigrants to this country. Many are undocumented. It will be great for the next president to consider having a dream center here in this university. We have Fresno State University, Fresno City College as well, and it will be a support, some way to encourage students to continue obtaining a higher education. It will be great to have a diversity taking into account the culture, the language of these communities that are part of our society, part of the Central Valley. That's what I wanted to share with you. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Next.
Hello, my name is Kelvin J. Sakrisdal. I'm a professor of economics, department chair, and a past speaker of the faculty as well. I want to echo what everyone else here has said about the value of this university. I'd really like this new president to be able to embrace that mission of this university, really come to understand what this region needs and what this university does well, as opposed to a president who comes and uses this as a tool to build a resume. We need somebody who has integrity, treats people with respect, openness, and honesty. This seems like this basic kind of qualities, but we have had an experience of a president who doesn't have those qualities. And so that's really important to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Marianne Cannon. I'm the CEO of Stanislaus Community Foundation. And I really debated whether I had anything to lend to the conversation today, but I think I do, both as a first-generation student myself, college-going, a member of this community having grown up here, and a member of the Syrian-American community that's very much a vibrant part of Turlock, at least, in Stanislaus County, but also as the CEO of a philanthropic institution here that has played a convening role for several years now around K-12 and higher ed alignment. We've actually been convening CSU Stanislaus, Modesto Junior College, and 4 high school districts representing more than 20,000 students locally around how to change the trajectory for low-income, underrepresented youth. So I think, as everyone has said, the next president, boy, it's a tall order, as you've heard today. They're going to have to almost walk on water, if you will. My hope is that the faculty today, which it sounds like has very strong reasons for feeling the way they do, give this next person a chance so that there's some real healing that takes place and some real consensus that is built. What we know currently in our region is that while we have an 82% graduation rate, which is on par with the rest of California, less than 20% of those kids graduate from a 4-year university within 6 years. That's deplorable. That is not acceptable. It's certainly not acceptable to this community. I'm sure it's not acceptable to the faculty, to the administrators, and I know that we're all here for the students. I'm going to put my hat aside as the CEO of Stanislaus Community Foundation for a moment and speak to you as a mother of 2 young children who are also in the public school system when I say to you that I think we all share the same reasons for wanting a very strong candidate and eventual president for CSU Stanislaus. My hope is that this person comes in and is a consensus builder, is a listener, that prioritizes liberal arts, but also workforce preparation and economic development as the lending to the vibrancy of the region, that they have a strong background and knowledge of the Central Valley, and if not the Central Valley, communities like ours, our aspirations, our challenges, and our unique culture. I also would ask you to consider someone whose willingness and experience in shepherding change is built in experience working in a really collaborative environment, and someone with a demonstrated commitment to the good use of transparent, digestible data across systems. So I will tell you, I'm always surprised when I think of CSU Stanislaus or MJC, or I get that these are big institutions, but when we don't share backwards data to the high schools that are feeding students to us, why aren't we working better together around shared data when we all collect data so profusely? Let's use that data to galvanize really rich conversations across the K-12 system and higher ed. I think the time has come for those conversations to be generative. And I would also really recommend that you hire someone who, again, comes with a spirit of collaboration and consensus building and learning. And I can tell you that the community is really poised and is at a tipping point for many great things. We at Stanislaus Community Foundation view this region through a lens of abundance, not scarcity. And I would encourage anyone you hire that has a strong orientation to the possibilities that reside in this region. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments.
I'd like to thank the committee for sharing some thoughts and just giving the opportunity to do that. My name's Mitchell Watson. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Emmanuel Medical Center, the hospital here in town, and CSU Stanislaus alum. I was able to have the opportunity to go to classes here on this campus along with the Stockton campus up there. And I just want to share a couple things. We've had the opportunity to have Dr. Sheely on our hospital board, just been an amazing board member that's there. It's one of the things that we'd like to encourage the team is to make sure that there's that community involvement and that connectedness to the business community at large. I think Dr. Sheely, at least from our view, has done a really good job at doing that, and so just want to continue to echo those comments, and also to echo the comments that we really want a good guy in here, you know, someone with a lot of integrity, high values, you know, good moral compass, all that kind of thing. So again, thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts.
Thank you. Next.
Yes, hello, good afternoon. Thank you all. I think you all have a very difficult job ahead of you, and it's very gratifying to see the range of community members and the diversity on the board. So I'm sure that all of your opinions and experiences will come to bear on this very important decision. My name is Tina Savini. I have grown up in this community. I recognize a few of you. And I was a student here. I was also first generation in my family to go to college. Grew up on a farm. And the area has changed quite a lot since I was a student here. I'm now an adjunct faculty here, so I teach part-time here. I also teach part-time at the Modesto Junior College. Many of my colleagues and fellow citizens have already brought up many, many important aspects of what we're looking for in a president, and I think that all of those things are, I would defer to their elegance and thorough nature in that. But one of the things that I specifically felt was important to share is the fact that I do have the advantage of what it was like to be a student here and what it is like to be a faculty, particularly a part-time faculty member here. And I think there are many challenges that you're facing that have to do with things completely external to the university in terms of economic forces, the way we organize socially, the fact of what kind of jobs are the students going to have when they leave this institution, getting the best and brightest to stay in our community, having opportunities, entrepreneurial, and so on. All of those things have been discussed. Residents who use this institution often for a resume building opportunity, and even if they manage to stay here more than a few years, they're looking for another job, as though this area is not worthy enough or is the rung on a ladder to somewhere better. And I think that that leadership position, particularly of an institution like this, is extremely important because that sets the tenor for how not only we think about ourselves, but more importantly, what the students we're serving, the area we're serving, our children, how they view themselves. Really, a really big thing to where you come from is not good enough. And I think that that's the message that at least we get on some level as human beings when the leadership or people we put in leadership positions, right, don't value where they are. And I think that that's a very important consideration. I think that President Shealy has made a lot of the community outreach things. That's been wonderful. I really have seen that open up, certainly since the time that I was a student, and I applaud those efforts. I think those are very admirable things. But now he's leaving, okay? And so now we're in a position again where we're pressing the reset button. And I think that that is problematic for lots of reasons that many of the faculty have already expressed. And for those things, I would just say, please consider the fact of where someone is in their career and what their level of commitment is to the community in terms of the long term. Because again, I think all of us have seen the really detrimental effects to short-term, first quarter, second quarter balance sheet kind of mentality. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you guys for coming and welcome to Stan State. My name is Logan Martinez. I serve on ASI as the Board of Director for Student Clubs and Organizations, and I'm the President of Theta Chi Fraternity. I'm considering a top executive to oversee the operations here at Stan State. I would like to see a new president who supports student clubs, organizations, student government, and Greek life. Keeping in mind the importance of learning in college is why all the students are here. However, we cannot forget all that can be learned outside the classroom. By joining such organizations, it builds leadership skills, networking skills, personal development skills, and are significant in building a strong alumni base. I hope you can take in consideration of this importance and in preparing our students for postgraduate success. President Shilley has always been involved in community events such as Walk a Mile on Her Heels, as well as a lot of our homecoming events and our athletics. We need a future president to support our ambitious students and make our goals more attainable rather than suppress their goals. We truly need a visionary. We need a president who can take care of what's priority first, and it's preparing our students to be successful after graduation and taking pride of graduating here at Stanislaus. We also need a president that will embrace as well as adapt to the growing population we have here in Stanislaus County, meaning take advantage of the huge economic growth we have going, that we're going to see here in the next few years. Thanks for coming again.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Landeros. I am a peer academic leader within Housing and Residential Life. I am also a vice president for Love Evolution, our LGBTQ+ ally club on campus, and I am also the vice president of Sociology Club, which is also, well, it's not also, it's a community service club here on campus. I come to you today to ask for a president who is willing to take the initiative, a president who is willing to go out of his or her way to engage with the community, not only the campus community, but the Turlock community. I've seen President Shilley go out of his way and attend the Turlock City Council meetings and also meet with the Turlock Chamber of Commerce. He has also brought them to our campus to have a roundtable discussion. Actually, this was placed last Friday. He also invited a multitude of religious leaders in our community to come talk about diversity and equality and equity on our campus and in the Turlock community. I would just like a president who isn't afraid to tackle these issues, isn't afraid to talk to the students, isn't afraid to be a part of clubs, a part of events on campus that have to do with student achievement, such as Logan mentioned earlier, Greek life, student organizations such as clubs, and also ASI. Give me a second. So by this, I stand here today and ask you to take those issues into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. So, okay, we have one more. Please
One more?
proceed. Yes.
My name is Dieter Renning. I'm a retired professor. I taught economics at this campus for 26 years after several teaching positions in the Midwest. And I want to say, and I've been involved in faculty government and CFA and all sorts of activities. I want to stress one thing which was reflected in a number of comments that have been made today. And that is that whoever becomes president of this campus should be somebody who truly, genuinely respects faculty. I think in my 26 years here, I have experienced campus presidents who could be characterized that way, and again, campus presidents who could not be characterized that way. For me, it seems the most important thing in the next president of this campus, and he would be a true successor to, it's my understanding, I've not been teaching under, I put that in quotation marks, President Shilley, but my impression is that President Shilley fits that kind of qualification that I have in mind. But I hope that whoever is being chosen as president for this campus is somebody who does not see himself or herself as, I'm up here, the president, and you are down there, the faculty, but as somebody who truly regards himself or herself as a colleague of the faculty and behaves that way and makes whatever decisions are being made with the faculty in mind at all times. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, thank you guys for coming to our campus today. My name is Marvin Hooker, and I'm the Student Government Advisor for the Associated Students, a recent graduate of Stanislaus State and also a former student leader. I believe that we need a president who will be focused on the fundamental needs of our students outside of the classroom that promote student success, such as academic advising, career advising, and also student engagement, as my peers have mentioned before. I also think that this new president needs to recognize the work that our campus leaders have been doing, such as revamping our strategic plan so that we can continue to grow our campus, focus on the growth of Stanislaus State. Before we should be at a higher FTE than we are currently, and also focusing on community outreach, as President Shealy has done a great job of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Poen Naidu. I'm a student here at CSU. Thank you. I'm a student here at CSU Stanislaus, and I'm also the former managing editor of the CSU Signal. And I heard a lot of comments about the next president valuing the community that we live in. I just like to say that I think this community isn't like how it's been in the past. It's growing, it's evolving. And I know this university, a lot of times people think it has a glass ceiling. So what I would like in the next president is doesn't believe that, believes this university can grow and achieve great things in the arts, in the sciences. So I like to say that the next president, I hope, wants this university to be compared to the top universities in California and nationally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Eileen Hamilton. I'm a graduate of Cal State Stanislaus. I am also the chair of the University Budget Advisory Committee here. I am a former school board member. My husband taught here for 33 years. I'm very nervous. And anyway, I have seen every president except the first one and dealt with them. And some I've known better than others. And my goodness, I'm nervous. So I would like to see as much transparency as you can have here. That is the most important thing. I've seen presidents who were hired that there was so much transparency within the community, and others where all of a sudden, boom, we had a new president. So please keep that in mind.
Thank you very, very much.
Hello. I'm staff the past 9 years here. I'm Petra Nebel. I can say that I'm enforcing one of the CSU requirements, graduation requirements. I'm taking care of the graduation writing assessment requirement here on this campus. And as you probably hear it too, I'm very nervous as well. But we already heard the future president. We hope that we already scared off all the mediocre presidents. We need an excellent president, but not only looking to make more money. We want a president who is actually here for the students, which we all are. I'm serving the students, and as I said, enforcing a CSU requirement. We, as our own department, grew 40% the past 3 years with my team leader, Rachel Grimshaw. She is English faculty. We are outreaching to the students, not only the ones on campus, but also the ones on the feeding colleges around us, and the transfer students coming in, that they're taking our WPST on time. And we're always hoping that also the faculty is standing behind us and helping us that this word gets out, that this is done in due time for these students to graduate on time. I would like to see in the future president not only that he is transparent, but that he is also a doer, not just talking and looking good to others, but that he actually will have things done here. And as also staff and faculty is complaining, we are not making enough money to actually being outstanding staff and faculty here, and here are for the students and serve them and trying to make a better place for them here. We want to like to see that also reflected in our pay. And also what is very important in this state is our environmental issues. Not only that we are in the drought, and that's not just now, that will be in the future as well, that the president is also not only acknowledging that we need environmental issues faced, like we need to use resources as such as air and sun to feed this university with electricity, that we also take care of the water, that we are enforcing this also to the students, that they're understanding water is important, without it we cannot live. And that needs to be reflected in this president, that he will build more solar panels on this campus. I believe a university in any part of the region, not only in California, in nationwide, as I'm an immigrant from Germany, I believe universities are role models to others. And especially the president needs to show that we need to outreach to the other community around us with environmental issues, and that we are actually also, who we graduate from here, that they actually also find jobs. I am an alumni as well. I got my bachelor's in science in computer information systems here, and I'm an MPA graduate last year. And I would like to see also that staff gets promoted within the university and not outsiders brought in with higher pay, because the outstanding staff will leave the CSU and go somewhere else and gets paid better. So I hope this president is also acknowledging and especially doing things and helping us to succeed and grow in a great way. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. So we're just at 2:30, so what I want to do is limit, no, I want you to speak, but limit to no more than 3 minutes, if you may.
My name's Susan Marshall, and I've been here 28 years, and I'm also a first-generation college student, so I want to congratulate all the students who are first generation, and I think that this is a wonderful university, and I want to just join my voice to the voices that I've been listening to, particularly my faculty colleagues, but everyone really, and say that of course we want a president who can do all of these things, who can reach out to the community and sustain some of the relationships that President Shealy has reestablished. I think that's very important. Someone who is consultative and who will take into account faculty, student, and staff voices. And perhaps for me, most importantly, what I've really appreciated about Dr. Shealy, and I hope to see in the next president, is someone who is interested and supportive of the academic experience of the student and academic programs, and the people who supply the academic programs, including academic administrators, faculty, staff, everybody. I've really been impressed by the way Dr. Shealy has supported general education and writing. Writing is very important. And I hope we can get a president who is very interested in sustaining those kinds of relationships. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, okay, so we've heard from all that want to speak. Well, thank you all for sharing your thoughts. Be assured that this now is part of our record going forward as we consider filling the position of your new president. Thank you, members of the committee, for agreeing to serve. This is the most important thing we do. Choosing a new president as we know we have to take this very seriously. Your commitment and time as a committee is greatly appreciated. Thank you everyone for being with us this afternoon, and now the committee will proceed to a closed session. Thank you very much.